Welcome everyone to Open Stutter, where have a special guest today. I'd like to introduce you to Roy Anderson. He is a system engineer for a information technology company and a friend of mine. How you doing today, Roy?
Pretty good. It's President's Day, so it's happy to have the day off, even though I'm working from home, so it feels like a day in. So both feel similar, but happy to be here and talk about stuttering.
Yeah. So yes, all of our days feel pretty similar now. But today's a special day because you're on with us. So yeah, maybe just start off sharing a little bit about your journey with stuttering over the years and sort of how you handled it growing up and how things have changed for you.
Yeah. So I've been stuttering for about as long as I can remember into childhood. I don't really remember it much during like elementary school. I remember like briefly going to like a speech therapist that was at our school, but but that ended probably due to budget cuts. So it didn't really, affect me majorly until I would say until about middle school. I think 7th grade I had to give I had to recite a poem, and I struggled on the poem it really bad. It was like stage fright combined with stuttering times two, even though like for the most part I knew the students. I mean, it wasn't. I just struggled mightily during the speech, and after that, like we had to go to lunch, and I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't like, even though everybody was like cool. It's not like there was like any like, oh, this person is like different, or this person is like, it's not like I was like banished from the class because of stuttering. It was just like tough. It was just like I don't, it was just so I just kind of it led me to kind of working to be like highly self-critical of it, because I guess it was more of like a self-protection mechanism to like where, if I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna let others make me feel bad about my stuttering because I already beat them to the punch. So yeah, that led to a lot of moments where I did not speak a lot going forward in public during class. I tried to like avoid it at all costs. If I did have to speak, I would speak either very fast. I would look down. I wouldn't look up or anything like that. I don't really recall ever asking a question in high school. I just kind of like, because it was a big school, I was able to just kind of like float about, and talked with friends. But in terms of like asking questions during class, or you know or um like approaching new people, or yeah, that wasn't something I did. um, yeah, I always felt more comfortable like talking with like small groups, and um, I never really, yeah, I tried to keep things short, like in terms of conversations, just to you know uh, decrease the chances of stuttering. And yeah, even in that, and I guess that kind of worked. Made graduated from high school, then went to community college, did well there. Uh, like wasn't working on the stuttering at all, just kind of just floating on. Just putting in a lot of effort into into the work, so that I could kind of not have to work on the speaking element of it. And that that works up until graduate from community college. So I was in community college. I had to speak a couple times, and I was really, but I was able to make it through, because I not make it through. I was, yeah, I did. I didn't beat myself too much up for it. It was more just like, all right, you got to do this. Just try your best. And I guess this, for me, success at that point was like, if I don't stutter during the presentation, then it was good. So like, yeah, so like even before, yeah, so like my major like uh, strategies for like presentations, like I guess like PowerPoint presentations, was just either a memorize the memorize the speech, or memorize the talking points to the point where that I can just regurgitate it out from memory, or or don't memorize it to the point where I'm just looking up at the screen, so that I don't have to make eye contact with anybody. So I don't have to, so if I don't have to look at anybody, then I won't have to like kind of feel that shame like during the presentation, or uh, show like moments of the disfluency. Um, yeah, and that I would say that worked up. I mean, I was able to, you know, make it through, uh, make it through community college, make it through undergrad, and then when graduate school hit, that is when I guess things kind of came to a head, because I couldn't just kind of like power my way through it. I had to work. Uh, I would needed to work more on the communicative aspects of it, because usually like when I didn't ask a question in undergrad, it'd be like, okay, I'll just look it up on my own, figure it out. It might take a lot longer than asking a question during a class would have taken, but you know, uh, anything to avoid, or yeah, it was easier to avoid stuttering than to, yeah, it was like, yeah, it was better to avoid stuttering than to avoid helping myself in a class. So that's, yeah, that's kind of where I was at the time. But I mean, it worked. So I mean, it worked for me up until a point. um yeah, when I got to graduate school, it was tough, because I was trying, and not, yeah, because I was still, I was still open stuttering, but wasn't necessarily like taking on the role of person who stutters, and was trying so hard just to like do well, but getting but not really reaching the standards. I presentations. I can't think of a good presentation I did during graduate school. Not good, but like it was just a lot of just anxiety and dread during the presentation, because it was kind of like a lot of like self doubt, and then like all that. And um yeah, I was it's kind of just yeah, not being able to adequately communicate, like, here's where I'm struggling at, and kind of like being able to, like, yeah, I was struggling to, be honest, with myself, and like, or to, to be honest with other people regarding, like, how are you actually doing, like, in terms. So it led to, yeah, so I took a leave of absence from graduate school to kind of like reset, and to work on, some of the other like, to work on like getting back on a track. And a part of that for me was to work on, like, to work on to work on being more confident with my speech, and be more confident with, being in, yeah, like. And so I looked up uh, therapies for people who stutter, and I knew that I didn't want to try, like, something that was like motor based, because like I did briefly in between the summer of undergrad and graduate school. It was just primarily just like, here are these techniques you could do, here are these um here are, yeah, like, here are these, like, exercises, and they they were not very helpful. And I feel like, and then I kind of like had it in my head that, like, or I read in, in a couple of papers, and that, like literature is basically like geared towards, if you're an adult who stutters, it's something that, that's a part of you for, your life. And so that, I mean, and so that I was like, okay, so it's so I you know so I kind of stumbled on to the avoidance reduction therapy for people who stutter. And I, I figured that was probably much more better for me, because a lot of the issues are not necessarily the stuttering moments, but the moments that I had with myself after the stuttering moments. Like, there have been um, speeches that I've had to give when I was a kid, even after, like, let's say, like, I had to, like, read something at a church, and it was, yeah, and I did not want to do it, and I still did it, but, like, and I think I showed a lot of moments of disfluency, and then afterwards uh, yeah, I went to a separate. Yeah, I think I asked to be excused from the rest of the service, and then yeah, and then I think I just sat in the car and just cried, because I just hated stuttering publicly that much. And, as a kid, I just felt a lot of shame in that moment. And yeah, and I guess I guess what also annoyed me is that, like people were like, "Oh, you did great. Oh, you like during this, like, after the service," and I was just like, and I was always like, "Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you." But I was like, that that's like, you're lying. Like, that was uncomfortable for you. That was uncomfortable for me. Like, that was that wasn't good at all. But yeah, it kind of just felt like my stutter was, swept under the rug. So I just, you know, I just tried to, you know, either bury it as much as I could, or, or just try to just push through it as much as I could.
Yeah, that shame piece of it is so powerful. And I love how you phrased it, that it wasn't so much exactly what was happening in that stuttering moment, but for you, it was about how you felt afterwards.
Yeah.
I just think that's so important, because it's a lot of people who don't understand stuttering all of the focus is on the moment of stuttering, and how can we decrease those moments, or skip over them, or give you some miracle strategy to not do them. And you're so right. I think for so many of us, yeah, that moment can be excruciating, but it's all the anxiety and anticipation before, and then all the shame and self, you know, beating ourselves up afterwards that really make up the heartache of stuttering.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and it, and I guess, yeah, yeah, and I guess what the other component is that I guess, for, yeah, and the self component is definitely the huge part of it, because like, I mean, after anybody makes like a mistake, like let's say like in a sports thing, if you miss the game winning shot, or not game winning shot, but like if you make a, like it's a very public moment, and then everybody's just like, it's okay, it's okay, like then it's kind of like, did you not just like isn't it, yeah, so it's just like that honesty component, or just that acknowledgement component of it, just like, hey, I noticed that you're going through a tough, or like I noticed that was tough for you, or hey, that might have been like, hey, that might have been difficult for you, but I'm glad that you did it. Like I think I think because like it can be like, like I don't know, like without me getting introduced to um arts and a community of adults who stutter, I wouldn't have known anybody else who does. I mean, I think I only had like one professor who did, and I never really openly like had a conversation with them about it, just because I didn't. I, I mean, I was happy to like, oh yeah, I'd like to see somebody who was a professor who stuttered, but it's not like he really acknowledged it, or it's not like he really like took on that identity. So it's kind of like, did, like, yeah, it just didn't really feel comfortable like talking about that with them. But yeah, yeah, I think the kind of the emotional aspect of stuttering, like I there are like the instances that like that really kind of used to bother me. Well, not really, but like other instances like ordering food, like talking on the phone to like organize meetings, like, or like to organize, like let's say like doctor's appointment or dentist appointment or something like that. Like I hated doing that, because like I would always stutter on like information about myself, like my name and my like phone number or something like that, and that would be like, and that would feel embarrassing, because it's just like, because sometimes like you would either, I would either get like, oh, I think your phone's breaking up, or oh, like, can you repeat that again, and then it's just, yeah, so it's not really, but yeah, it's took me a while to reframe it as, I mean, the the most important part is it's like getting the information right, not necessarily the stuttering component, because it took me it takes a while it took a while for me to like get into a mode of, or get into the thought pattern of, I mean, as long as, you know as long as you're ordering food, like as long as you get the order right, or as long as you order what you want to eat, that's the most important part, not necessarily like the stuttering component. Yeah, it might take you a little bit of time more than like a person who doesn't stutter, but that doesn't make your order any less valid. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve food or anything like that, or just because you're not fluent during uh, I guess what people would, or what a person who stutters would consider to be like a basic task, or or whatever, or a task that they would like to be fluent in, that doesn't discount the moment at all. So yeah, so I would take that, yeah, that it's taken me a while to get to that point, and to just first become like accepting with the moment of stuttering. And yeah, and I would say that kind of started with arts. And yeah, it started in like 2018, yeah, fall 2018. And yeah, and I think that's helped a lot with me becoming, or like reframing, like what is uh what is a success, like what is like um like what is, like what is a healthier way to look at things. And just trying to be more like uh just be more accepting of yourself. So I think that's been a pretty huge component of it.
That self acceptance piece is huge. I think it's such a huge part in all of our journeys. At least starting off, it's the lack of self acceptance. And you mentioned something, going back to middle school for a second, which is everybody's favorite time. But of beating yourself up for stuttering. And it ties in with what you just mentioned about this idea of what we consider a success and what we consider a failure. And it just it breaks my heart to think about so many people who stutter, myself included as a kid, right? Who, when we stuttered, felt like it was our fault, like we did something wrong. And how messed up that is, because we're hardwired to stutter. We were born and developed as people who stutter. And so that's how our brains are wired to speak sometimes. And it's just, yeah, it's cruel almost, the way that we sort of internalized something that is a part of us that we couldn't change as a failure. And having those feelings almost every time that we opened our mouth. How did you, and it might not be a finished process. I think for a lot of us, it's not a finished process yet, but how did you start to shift that idea of success and failure to sort of internalize that when you stutter, it wasn't something you had failed at?
I guess with a kind of yeah, I guess it kind of was like not like an aha moment, but just like a series of like, just of like thoughts of just like, well, I mean, it's not like it's like, all right, so I tried to like reframe, like, all right, so what has stuttering prevented me from doing in my life? Okay, so becoming a quarterback of a football team, yeah, but graduating high school, no. Does it stop you from graduating from community college? No. Did it stop you from graduating from undergrad? No. Did it stop you from applying to grad schools? No. Like those are all things that that you did. Like it didn't stop. Did it stop you from getting a driver's license? No. Like this, like it's not like it I know it might be like a lot, but like it took me to a point where I was like, it didn't, yeah, like it hasn't really, the emotional component is still there, like it still like has an emotional effect, but there's still, even as a person, it's not like I became a hermit and didn't go to my classes, or I didn't like speak at all to like during group projects. So like, I actually didn't communicate with people at all. It's not like I cut myself off from the world. So while there is that like there wasn't I still, kept trying to do things. And I guess being, I guess, yeah, having, and the fact that I tried, I, that I think that's more of the successful component, because I could have not tried. I could have just, you know, could have not, went out there and presented to the class, and probably would have gotten a failing grade. It's like, yeah, I didn't do it, rather than like actual. So yeah, it's still a work in progress, but I think it got to a point where like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, you try it. It's like, I can't control I can't control that I stutter, and like, no matter how much I quote unquote slow down or breathe or whatever, it's, I'm going to stutter from time to time, and it took me a while to get to that point to be like, yeah, that's okay. It's not like, I mean, worst comes to worst, like, it's it's a part of me, and that's, is part of, being human. Like, everybody has something that, that there are, vulnerable about, or they wish that they could change. And it's more of like, what what strategies does the person have um try uh kind of help themselves with that. And for me, I guess it was that kind of like, not wild abstract way of thinking about it, but that way of just thinking about like, all right, well, what happened? Okay, did did a bus come and hit you after you stuttered on the word tomato at Subway? No. did did Subway lose billions of dollars? No. Did you lose? No. It was just struck. Did did you ask for like black olives, even though you didn't want black olives, because it was easier for you to say black olives than like spinach? No. So it's just kind of just like refraining, like actually like like reframing that, yes, the moment of stuttering happened, and yes, that's okay. It's not, it it is important, but you shouldn't let that be the dictator of like of what of what is success is for you, or like what success or failure is, because it's not something that you can control.
It it's a really interesting point about, right, what we can control and what we can't control. So being a person who stutters, can't control that. Stuttering on your order at Subway, can't control that. Just deciding to go to Subway and order your food, that's a choice that you do have. You can choose to do it or not do it. So I think, from what you're saying, and I know you, so I know this is true too, but it sounds like for you, starting to judge success and failure based on things that you actually could control, as opposed to way back as a kid where every time you stuttered, interpreting that as a failure, even though you couldn't change that. It sounds like that was a big part of your journey along this continuum of self-acceptance.
And a lot of it was, crap, I lost train of thought, but yeah, I agree with that. It was a lot of just like, I you know I I think it was one class was like, I can't control, you may not be, I may not be able to control, that I stutter, but I can, choose to stutter how I want to, or what works best for me. So, or, and yeah, I think a lot of it for me is like not letting moments of stuttering make me feel worse about like my day, how I would feel younger. Oh, like when I was younger, moment of stuttering would probably have a negative effect on my day, especially if somebody saw it or like if it was in public or something like that. But now it's like, it, okay, you had a moment of stuttering, and what else happened? And what else happened? So that's okay.
You're still here. It didn't kill you.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, yeah, I know, and I'm sure that every person who started this has a different way of looking at it. So, but yeah, for me, it's just kind of just like, okay. And then I went to my car and I stuttered, and then I stuttered on and like somebody asked me for directions. I stuttered, but at least I led them to the right direction. They're not, no matter what they think about like what this person just said or what happened with that person's mouth as he told me things. he tried to like, at least I tried to uh, point the person asked, point that person to the right direction. So yeah, so just kind of like having to have that cognitive point of like, okay, what, not to like get too wrapped up into the emotional side of like, uh you know I wish that didn't happen. It was more just like that did happen, like that moment of stuttering did occur, and you, you still said what you said, and that's okay.
It's sounds like a big piece of this for you was acknowledging the moment of stuttering itself, acknowledging that what had just happened. Because I know for me, there were so many times as a kid where I think I just blocked everything out. You know, I had some horrific experience where, again, in my mind, it was a horrific experience. For everybody around me, it was like, oh, this kid stutters, right? Or it might have been, oh, this kid talks weird. I'm not sure what's going on. But nobody spent as much time, I think in general, nobody spends as much time thinking about our stuttering as us, as we
Yep.
do. And so, and I think what you're saying, it hits at this point too, of that we can't really control what other people think. We all try to control what other people think about us, but we really can't. So like take the giving directions example. That person might have thought, oh man, that guy stuttered a lot. I wish I never asked him. Or that person might have thought, wow, that guy stutters, and he still gave me the directions, and he didn't let it stop him from just talking to a total stranger who caught him off guard. And that guy was pretty courageous. We have no clue which one of those things somebody was thinking, or anywhere in between. And I I think part of this too for a lot of people is letting go a little bit of trying to control what other people think. Has that been a part of it for you? And if so, how have you kind of worked through that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the caring what people thought component. Yeah, and I think it was always, yeah, like it was more of a projection of, you know, of like, I think because of the starting component having such a effect on, on my self-esteem, going up as a kid, that uh that projection of, oh, people are thinking this, like, these thoughts are coming. Like, it was just me projecting how I felt about my stuttering onto other people. So like, yeah, like if you have that moment of stuttering and then like, oh, people think I'm weird. People think, like, but did they say that? No. No. So these are all thoughts that are coming in. So like trying to delineate what was like coming from my own head, coming from my own self-esteem, and how stuttering affected that. It was, yeah. So like that whole controlling what people thought is like, like, yeah, like, I mean, yeah, yeah, everybody wants people to like them, and like, yeah, like everyone wants to, like, fit in and be a part of the group and all that. So yeah, so that component of like not wanting to like stick out, not wanting to draw like a, what was I as I thought about, like, draw attention to myself because of stuttering, like that was a big component of it. That was a big component because it was just, you know, I just yeah, I just kind of wanted to, just like, I knew that I stuttered, but just, yeah, just kind of, just sweep it under the rug, just try to. I guess that was my way of trying to, try to cut, control what I thought people thought about me, which it became more of, yeah, it's still taking a while. I mean, it's going to take a while because self-esteem is such a huge aspect of, yeah, such a huge aspect of everyone. So everybody's journey is different, but yeah, that was a huge portion of, like, yeah, I had to learn that. I guess I kind of came aware of, like, yeah, I've been projecting like my moments of stuttering projected like low self-esteem. So like that was me thinking that, like, all right, these people are gonna think I'm weird because I stutter. Right? It's like, hey, it's not like, when I looking back, I was like, it's not like I haven't had friendships. Like, not like I grew up without any type of like human connect human connection, or, you know not like, it's yeah, it's not like I didn't have it's yeah, it's not like moments of stuttering stop me from, you know actually, like, having friends or anything like that. So it took me a while just to like get rid of that, like, yeah, just to try to, like, you know to look at it more, like, yeah, just try to look at it more in a healthy way to, try to build up that self-esteem. Because I think that, uh I don't, well, I don't know for others, but like, at least for me, the the stuttering and self-esteem component, they kind of go kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, part of that, you mentioned as a kid that you didn't really talk to anyone about stuttering too much. I think we all sort of talked to our, those of us that had speech therapy would talk to our SLPs, and of course it's different for everybody, but it sounds like you didn't really have too many people to talk to about stuttering, and there was this almost like a conspiracy of silence around it. You mentioned giving the doing the reading at church and everybody saying, "Oh, great job," and just kind of glossing over the fact that that sucked for you. It was really hard and really painful and shame-inducing. And so it's almost like, we maybe we learn to suppress our stuttering, both the actual stuttering and our thoughts and feelings about it, because that's what's going on around us too. Like there's no model of, well, let's put stuttering on the table. It's a real thing, and talk about it. And yeah, I'm curious what you think about that, and if, as you found adults who stutter and found a group and a bit of a community, what impact that's had on your journey, and on your self-esteem as a person who stutters?
I think having that community has been pretty helpful because it's seeing a lot of different people doing like a lot of different things. Like uh, remember it was like a panel that we did, and yeah, like everybody was doing like had different job titles, doing different things, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, and like, but stuttering was still like a part of their identity and part of like of a part of you know themselves, and so like it's in holding that component of stuttering and being like, yeah, I stutter, and I also do this or also do that. It's like that's a big help. I mean, that's a very nice example of like hold like yeah, I think yeah, the for self component, just like yes, stuttering is a part of me, but it is not the only part. Um, so I think coming to that coming to that thought was helped by being in community, like meeting you is like, oh yeah, like this is Ben. He's like yeah, he's a person who stutters and he also loves sports just like me. Or oh, he also like we also have these connections. Or so it's yeah, and yeah, and yeah, and it does feel good, and and it's good to have that like stuttering component acknowledged, and yeah, and also me understanding that like for the people who do yeah, and for people who don't like who do not stutter, they haven't had that experience, so it's going to be hard for them to you know put themselves in your shoes. So I just kind of had to like especially for like family and loved ones, just be like, oh, like, they're like just as I am trying the best that they can, they are trying the best that they can. And so yeah, it's it's all just being appreciative of that, yeah, that everybody is is trying their best, and nobody wants to intentionally, well, depending on the person, nobody wants to intentionally like put people down or make people feel bad for being different. So uh, so it is a more helpful for like people who stutter, well, for me as a person who stutters, to actually be in a community, well, not be in, but like to actually like interact with the community of people who stutter, because you can understand like, hey, like this, how how do people, you know how do people who stutter like lead a conversation at work or lead a meeting at work, or like those are questions that I would be able to ask, or I wouldn't feel like incredibly like isolated or feel like, oh, I got to be fluent. It's like, no, I just got to be myself. And if I stutter during work, then I'm not the only one. So yeah, so I think having that community is pretty helpful in like getting to like in actually like putting um and putting my and yeah and then putting like my life into perspective.
Hmm. This the question I like to end on. What piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Try. I guess be be yourself more, and Yeah, I guess don't let fear. Yeah, don't. It's a good question. Don't let fear, dictate what you're gonna do with your life, and that's so hard to say, to young kids. Like, hey, you're gonna be scared, but it, but to my younger self, like, you know, that's a good question. Don't really have a other than just uh hmm, yeah, don't just don't be afraid to communicate. I think that uh if I had not no, I mean, if I was more like I mean, if I like hmm,
I liked your answer a lot. I'm gonna be honest. Be more of yourself, and don't let fear stop you from doing what you want to do.
yeah. Oh, third one. Yeah, don't beat yourself up so much. Not younger me. It beating yourself up. Like, yeah, like it was to a point where like I was more so own critic, and that led me to like working hard and all that, and trying to excel at things that I didn't have to talk in. So like, but yeah, beating yourself up doesn't really help. It's not gonna make the stuttering go away. It's not gonna make yourself feel any better. It's just kind of, what don't beat yourself up so that you can so that you can try to be more of yourself. That's the way I would probably that's the advice I'd probably give.
Uh, awesome, Ray. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for like inviting me to talk. Hopefully, this is helpful to some people, and I hope you have a good day.